Hi everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition, and today we are going to delve into stepping stone realities, which is a concept I heard, and I felt like it was something we could explore because we kind of have this misconception that I feel like I use that a lot. A lot of ascension is a lot of misconceptions because we're trying to do the concept of ascension in the beginning from our human consciousness, which can't comprehend it. So we think it's going to look the same way, just more of the human stuff, right? We're just going to double down on the human realities and have more stuff, but we don't have any of the human emotions that we don't want to feel, like sadness, blame, guilt, shame, all those things. We don't have those. We won't have those. We'll have all the material stuff we want. That's kind of what we feel ascension is, And then we get farther and farther in, and we realize that's not really what this is it? Then we've gotten so far and we can't go back, because you can always say you can't board a sinking ship. And once you start shifting realities, technically they don't exist anyway, so you can't go back to something that's not there. So we're kind of in this complete and utter shift of everything. And we get into realities, and we get into new realities, and we get into our old realities collapsing, and we start stepping into soul-aligned realities. Now, the big misconception we'll have with that is that if it's soul-aligned, it's going to be soul-aligned forever. And if I'm in this, even if we get into the twin flame matrix relationships, we can come through to help us clear, and we think they're going to last forever. And they don't, because they're just there to help us get to the next step. And when we're getting to some of these realities, they are, in a sense, they're a stepping stone reality. They're not really what I would consider a main one, but they're helping me get to the next place. And most of my overarching dimension realities that were built on a certain body frequency I was at, a process I was in ascension, and each ascension process, and you're going to be going through a couple of different ones at one time. It's not just like you're in one ascension, part of ascension at a time. You're going to be into a lot of different ones. But I would notice that there would be one constant in that reality, and a lot of those constants would be maybe where I lived, right? And I would be living in a certain place for 2.5 to 3 years. Once I got through the place I lived in my human realities, and once that was over, because those places I lived for 10 or something, or over 10 years. Because our humans tend to plant longer. We'll stay longer because we don't shift as quickly. So we don't need to move along. We don't need to keep things moving because our human realities and where we're living and the places we're living are still aligning with that consciousness. But when you get into ascension, you start moving around more. And I would always kind of link up a reality as to where I was living. What process, the different processes I was in. Sometimes I could see none. Sometimes I could see one thing I was doing, then I could see another one layer on top. The farther we go through ascension, we can see more because our emotions will block what we can see. So we're able to see more of what we're doing and why we're doing it as we go, as we keep going. Because like I said, we can't really go back. So there are a lot of these different realities we'll get into, and they're not gonna last a super long time. But they're what we call a stepping stone. They are something that's in, because it's something we're going to get out of it. Either we're going to see something we don't want to be part of anymore, and we see how drastically different we are from this thing now. Whether it be a business partnership. And I know I had the one that's coming to right now, coming into my, awareness is one that I have with a business partner. I thought we were going to be, doing a lot of stuff together. I thought it would be aligned. We think a lot of these things, soul aligned means aligned forever. That's kind of this misconception. But even soul aligned is just aligned for the moment. It's not. Sorry. The cat is distracting me. Okay. I'll come back. Let me. I'll splash that together. I'll combine those later, so sorry for the distraction on that. We get into a lot of realities where, because it's soul aligned, we think it's going to be forever, right? And they're not. They're soul aligned for where our soul is in that moment in our journey, where we are with our purging. It's more really where our purging is, how the frequency of our body Because we'll still attract things and bring things in that are a frequency of something we're holding. It still might not be our highest, but it's there for a reason. The twin relationships will come in for that because they help us get to stuff we can't get to. Technically, all our relationships are twins, and all our relationships come in for that. But there are some that stand out more. Normally the romantic ones for us are going to stand out more because that's kind of the ones that we are, from our human consciousness, assigned to pay more attention to. You know what I mean? They're what all the rom-coms are about and all the Disney movies are about. So we tend to kind of fixate on those, that's going to be a source of happiness because that's what we're conditioned. That's a source of happiness. That romantic partnership is going to make it all make sense. So that's kind of one of the things that kind of sucks us in to the twin relationships. But they, to me, are what I would call a stepping stone reality because they are not normally going to last. They're just there to show us certain things and then we move on to the next thing. My stepping stone realities never lasted the 2 to 3 years that the cycle would go through. I'd go through a couple stepping stones in between. And it's either going to show me something that I'm past now, and I don't need to go back to. But you get to a lot of these realities where we have fulfilled our soul contract to that space. We've filled our soul contract to that person. And we don't technically have to be there anymore. We can see the contract. Some people talk about, we'll call it, you can see the soul contract, you can read the Akash. You can see the Akash and where that record is and what you had to do. And okay, I've done that. And I know with me, I could very clearly see with one relationship, I had done everything I said I was going to do. And we had come to kind of an impasse. And a lot of these stepping stone realities kind of end in a way in an impasse. We've kind of come as far as we can go with this person, with this group of people. And unless the consciousness shifts, it can't go any farther, So we are, I'm going to use the word forced here. I don't really like that word, but I'm going to use it. We're going to allow it. We're going to bring in the word forced. We're kind of forced to look at it and make a choice. We can hold on to it, but you're going to find that once you've fulfilled your soul contracts in it, it's not fun anymore. It might not have been fun to begin with. A lot of the ones I did weren't fun to begin with, but I had to be there and I knew that and I showed up to be there. But we had come to an impasse, The person wasn't going any farther. I couldn't go back and keep playing in the realities we played in. I'd already done as much clearing as I was going to do with that. And now I'm just regurgitating the whole thing all over again. It's getting frustrating. It's not fun. You begin to feel like you're kind of cornered because you're not going anywhere with it. It's like your hamster spinning on a wheel. You can't get anywhere. And there's an impasse there. Where you're going, they're not right now. Doesn't mean 5 years down the road they might not show up. But right now, there's no reason to continue it. They're not going where you're going and you're not going back to where they are. And not back to where they are is judging where they are. That's just where they are. They're not in a place yet to go to the next thing. They're not ready for that. It's not their time yet. So you'll find a lot of these stepstone realities, and what it would usually mean to me is it was helping me clear something out so I could get to the bigger ones. My realities where I was able to anchor in more heavenly realities, what I would consider soul aligned on a bigger scale. Where they could last longer. I could now be in this other place for 3 or 4 years. And eventually we will get to the place where we'll stay, we won't be moving around that much anymore. And some people move around a lot more than I moved around. Some people move around like every 3 or 4 months or every 3 or 4 weeks. It depends on kind of, what your agreement was with that. And they're also activating themselves and activating different places they go to, when they're moving around like that. Like a lot of people get called to Egypt for the Egyptian timeline to clear out the Egyptian timeline, the corruption of a lot of those timelines. So it also activates the royal blood to go to a lot of these places. So I think when we really feel into these realities, and when we really start to say no to something and say, oh, no, that's not what I want it to be. Because we think everything coming in is going to be, long lasting. We feel like everything soul aligned is going to last forever. And we don't see that as we shift and as we move, a lot of these things, they're not aligned anymore because our frequency continues to increase. But what I would find is, and I would do the same thing, is you start to say no to stuff because it's not how you picture it, because you don't want to be there for 5 years. You don't want to be there for 3 years. You don't want to be in that type of job anymore. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do that. And you see things come in, especially when you're in a transition. You're getting ready to transition. You're moving. You might have left a job, and now you're like, okay, what's next, universe? Show me what to do. And you see a couple things trickle in. Normally, sometimes if your universe really wants to set you on a path, it'll just be one. You'll be like, here you go, you're going here. And I remember when I got that one, I'm like, oh, I don't want that one. I don't want to go to that one. No. No. Any other one. Any other one is fine, but I do not want to go do that one. But it kind of backs you in the corner because you have to go do that one. And once I went and did that one, and that one was spending more time with my parents, which I did not want to go do. You know, I wasn't in a place where I really wanted to go do that. But I had a lot of stuff to clear there. And it helped me be able to do that. And now that was a reality I look at and look back on and go, it was the biggest one I did, because it helped me clear out so much stuff, so much ancestral karma, so much, issues with how we're brought up. And a lot of people go through that, As our human, we might visit home, once or twice a year and work through whatever in that process we can. Usually it's a lot harsher. We might go away and then come back again. So it takes us a lot longer. As we get in a lot of these realities that are what we could call a stepping stone reality, it kind of immerses you in it. And it's like, okay, now we're going to clear this so you can get on to the next one, or move on to the next space within the one you're in. Sometimes we have a lot of side realities or stepping stone realities in the one we're in. And it's, even though you might be in one place for 3.5 years, you might see certain things that were kind of stepping stones. You might notice things start to shift. Even if you're still staying in the same place, you might shift different people you're hanging out with. They weren't supposed to stay for the whole 3.5, 4 years you're in this one space. They were supposed to be there for a while. They are, in a sense, that transition. They're helping you see something, clear something, And to go back to what I was saying to circle back, sometimes you get 3 or 4 and you got to pick through them and go, okay, is this aligned? Is that aligned? And because it's not exactly the way we want it to be, we'll go, oh, I'm not going to do that. Or, oh, I'm not going to go do that. And I don't know. But sometimes we have to go deeper than that and say, okay, why don't I want to go do that? Which one, is this something I'm supposed to do for maybe 4 or 5 months because it's a stepping stone? It's not a cemented reality. In our human consciousness, we feel like everything was so permanent, These are not. We might go do something for 3 weeks and be like, okay, but that's all I had to be there. But I had to be there for that 3 weeks. Some people might call some of those kind of quantum jumping through the realities. And there is a parallel to that where we kind of speed through some things. Stepping stone realities are not going to last a super long time. They might be something you feel kind of resistant to, that you really don't want to go do, but there's a reason you got to go there. There's something you're going to see. Technically, every reality, even in our human consciousness we went through, there's a reason we were there. We just couldn't see the reason. The more conscious you become, you're going to start to see the reasons. You're going to start to understand why you're there. You're going to see, okay, I understand why I was there. I understand why I had to go through that. I can see parts of it. I can see 7 reasons or 6 reasons, and there's another million we can't see. Don't shut something down because you don't see a longevity to it. Don't shut something down because of pride, because the stepping stone realities, they're very much important in the whole, in the whole geometrics of the reality you're creating. You just can't see it yet, especially if you're resistant to that stepping stone. Like, oh, I don't want to go do that. I don't want to go, I know like I said, if I go back to one of the business partners I had, we might have worked together for about 6 or 7 months. It became very obvious that it was not going to go long term because we were kind of at an impasse, And where I wanted to go, and also where I became with my consciousness, and where it wasn't really everyone's given 100% here, This doesn't feel like this is something I want to be in anymore. That will go apart. But I remember there's a lot of disappointment sometimes in those because we thought they were going to last longer, and we felt like we really had a match. Sometimes you feel the opposite. You feel like, oh, this is a match, this can really go far, and then it kind of pitters out after 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months. And like I said, some are shorter than that, but most of mine kind of went that long when they were more like stepping stones in the middle. And we get disappointed in that because we're like, why didn't this go? Why weren't we able to continue? And it's important to be able to look at why you can't continue it, to just be honest with yourself about where you are, where they are, and not judge any of it, and just say, okay, I see where everybody is right now. I can see we're at an impasse, and it might be an impasse where you're like, I don't want to participate anymore. I'm going to let their universe handle them, and I'm going to go over here and handle my stuff, and I'm going to keep going. Because that's really what ascension is. We keep moving through realities. We don't stay in the old ones. You might be in a place for, I know I was at it's just different places I would go around where I used to live. And I would go to those places kind of religiously for about 9 months to a year. Because to me, I have to kind of immerse in something to really know why I'm there. I can't sometimes be into something for like our human wants to go somewhere for an hour and feel like, okay, I can totally understand everything of why I'm here. And I was here an hour and I don't want to do it. I would have to go quite a while. One, I'm fulfilling contracts. I'm touching bases on everyone I'm supposed to meet here. And I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be here. But you get to a point where they're not comfortable anymore. They're not fun anymore. You kind of know you're hanging on to them because they didn't end the way you wanted them to. You didn't want them to end. And all of a sudden, you can see it was a stepping stone. I'm not supposed to be here anymore. I'm supposed to go on to my next thing. And with ascension, we move on. And the people in the human consciousness we leave behind, we're like, where'd you go? I have a couple people reach out to me, where'd you go? You were always here, now you're not there. You're never there anymore. Because it was over. I fulfilled my contracts. And now going forward, we would have an agreement on where everybody is and where we're going with the next reality. And if not everyone's in the consciousness to form that kind of soul agreement, we can't have an agreement. I've fulfilled my contracts. I've signed on the dotted line. I did it. We're done. And we move on. Don't hold on to a stepping stone reality because you feel like it's the only one you're going to have and you thought it would go longer. I used to look at it as disappointment. Now I look at it as, wow, look how far I've come where I don't have to. I can see this as a stepping stone. I can see this was not forever. This is just supposed to be for, 7 or 8 months to bridge a gap. It might bridge a gap to the next funds of money come in. If it's a monetary thing where you had this much money and now I'm going to have a stepping stone from here to here. And is that aligned a long term? No, I had a couple of things like that would come in where the way money was coming in, is it a soul aligned long term? No, and I knew that. But it was something to bridge a gap. Sometimes I would call it a bridging a gap reality. I'm just bridging a gap to this next reality comes in, and that one is more aligned with where I'm going. But that one's not ready yet. So I got to bridge a gap here. Sometimes we'll feel things we have to do, and we're like, why do I got to go do that? I feel like that's going backwards. Sometimes they will feel like you're going backwards. That's another way to identify them, I guess, because I would feel the same way. I feel like I'm going backwards. Why do I got to go do that shit again? I did that shit, I got burned. But we did it from a human consciousness. Now you're going to do it from a higher consciousness. It's not so much the act, it's the consciousness you do the act from. You can have two people do the exact same thing and have completely different results because of the consciousness of which they do it from. That's more important than the act. It's always going to be more important than the act. So I could have done something in my human reality that ended in flame and terror and horror. And then I come back and I'm like, oh, I don't want to, I don't want to do that again. But I see strongly I'm supposed to do it. It's just pressed. It presses on me like, gotta do that. It's like, oh, I really don't want to do that. But now I'm in a different consciousness doing it. I can feel like you're gonna need it. You're gonna have to have that stepping stone for a while. You're gonna need that for a while until this next thing's gonna come in. All the other things are lining up. All the people are lining up. And if there's not time yet, you might have a stepping stone to where you're also going to be clearing in the middle of that. And if you had any issues with what happened in the last reality where you did something like that, you're going to clear all that stuff out. A lot of times we will go through the stepping stone realities to clear out anything we had left of when we went through it the first 15,000 times to then be able to go on to the next one, because all that stuff that we are still holding in our body over what had happened, it was victim energy, whatever is coming up for us, have to be clear to go on. We can't go on to those next things. We can't go on to have, a unity relationship or have a more what they would call beyond the twin flames relationships. Some people call them conscious relationships, so that's not really the word I'm looking for. Oh, conscious partnerships is another one you might hear. You're going for a partnership, but if we still have issues with our father or mother, we can't have that, and these are just sort of examples I'm throwing out. If I still have an issue here, then how can I still am carrying all this stuff. So whether it's this stuff or something I used to do with money over here that now I got to revisit that, we're going to also be working through the stuff, but we don't need to work through the stuff over what we would consider a whole big, timeline reality. Right before we shift, you might get a lot of stepping stones. Normally we start to shift where the new reality starts kind of taking shape, but you're still kind of cleaning up the old reality. So don't be surprised if you see something come in. Don't dismiss it right away. Really look at it and feel into it and see, is this something that is this bridging something? Is it something I need to look at here? Something I've got to clean out here to then move on to the next thing? Is this a stepping stone? Like I said, I saw it used as, heard someone call it a stepping stone. I used to call it more of a bridge, where I was bridging different things, but I think stepping stone is probably a better word. I mean, now it's a stepping stone to my next one, and I gotta do it. Even if I don't understand why I got to do it, and I might be disappointed because it might be one I wanted it to be, more of a longer lasting reality. It wasn't, because soul aligned means it's aligned with a light of our soul for a reason. It's clearing out something of our human consciousness so something more light of our soul can come in. We can fill that space with light. It doesn't mean it's going to be there forever. It just means in that moment, this is what our soul needs to continue our ascension process. So we can connect deeper with it. We can feel more of that peace. We can feel more of that, universal, people will call that the bliss and the magic. And I was watching, people have been talking about some of the Saturday Night Live skits that Ryan Gosling had done. And I hadn't watched Saturday Night Live in probably so long, but anyway, I watched some, and there was one that was really funny, and to me, I can take everything, kind of look at it from a different lens and a perspective. But it was the one they were doing on, they were air quote kidnapped by aliens. It was all these people giving their different accounts of what had happened. This one lady would have this terrible experience, these other people had this great experience. And it was just the comedy in it. And sometimes ascension can feel like that. Sometimes you feel like you're in the bliss and magic, and other days you feel like you're getting probed, and you don't know which day you're gonna have. But it was just the context of the whole thing, and sometimes we can kind of look at that and bring levity to it, because it can feel like that sometimes. We don't know what we're gonna be getting, but we still have to keep going, and be able to see that there was a reason for all that. So I guess we're gonna leave it at the alien abductions. Okay, keep practicing the art of intuition.